Hi everyone, a very warm welcome to the ethics module. In this module, we are going to cover the entire ethics syllabus mentioned in the UPSC documents, and it is divided into 8 units primarily, out of which right now we're going to start the first unit, which is basic and the essence of ethics. Basic feature of ethics, definition, essence, properties, qualities. This chapter lays down the foundation of the other 7 chapters, has a lot of 10 markers appearing in the exam from this chapter. Therefore, it is extremely important that we focus on conceptual clarity, a lot of examples, and multi-dimensional connection. How the foundation will connect to various other parts of the syllabus. We'll also have a look at that. Yeah. Also, as you must be knowing, that there is a format in which we conduct the class. This is the foundation course, and we have after the foundation course another course which is the revision mastery module. Now, in the foundation course, we first start with brainstorming shots in every class. There are going to be micro questions for which I will give you anywhere between 1.5 to 2 minutes. You have to keep a pen and copy with yourself, and whatever question appears on the screen, you have to brainstorm and write 5 to 6 points in your copy. Those questions are mini questions of the PYQs. Every PYQ can be broken down into a set of mini questions. And in this technique where we cover brainstorming shots, we focus on these mini questions and building our brainstorming ability so that step by step we get the confidence and the aptitude of answer writing in a crisp, concise, and elaborate manner at the same time. Answer writing which is crisp and concise and is also comprehensive. For that, it is necessary that we brainstorm well. It's necessary that our mind is opened up, and it's also important that we are able to revise things properly. So this module, the foundation module focuses on your brainstorming ability, your critical thinking ability, your conceptual clarity, and making you aware and acquainted with the entire syllabus in a comprehensive fashion. Post that, when we cover the revision mastery module, that is where we focus on memorizing and by-hearting all the theory that is present in the syllabus. See, in the mains exam, for every question, you need 3 basic skills. You need the skill of interpreting the question. You need the skill of brainstorming on the spot, and the ability to recall from your notes. Suppose you know everything and you're not able to recall them properly, your notes in the exam, your hard work goes waste, right? So these 3 skills that I'm talking about, the skill of question interpretation, the skill of brainstorming on the spot, and the skill of recall, your ability to recall your notes, which effectively means how well you memorize, how well you revise, how strongly you have by-hearted the syllabus inside your head. These are the 3 basic skills, out of which this module will cover your brainstorming ability and your conceptual clarity and question interpretation to an extent. Whereas the other module, the next module, will cover your ability to recall and your ability to interpret questions. Very important, because in the next module we focus on elaborate answer writing, full-fledged answer writing, and memory hacks, covering the entire syllabus using memory hacks, so that when you walk out of the class, you not just know the syllabus, you have by hearted the syllabus, right? We will be covering a lot of answer writing and case studies in this module as well, obviously. But in the next module, we will not just cover answer writing, but also making sure that you actually know the subject, because what you know is not important. What you remember is, right? So the next module will take care that before the exam, when the panic appears, oh, do I know my notes or not? Am I able to, revise the entire subject, say, in 2 hours? You have to be aware of the challenge this exam faces, this exam throws on you, the structure of the mains exam, how it tests your stamina, how it tests your revision ability, right? So the aim of this entire module is that you score 140 plus in ethics, and you be with me in this. Follow what I am saying. Be sincere. I can guarantee you, with adequate practice, nothing can stop you from achieving your goal, right? Ethics also plays a very crucial role in your strategy, since the trinity of ethics, optional, and essay, helps you be competitive in your marks. So if you want that you score brilliant in your merit list, you clear mains and you have a brilliant high ranking merit, rank in the merit list, this subject is very important, correct? So with this brief background of the modules and the subject and its relevance in the exam, let's begin. So in the first class, today's class, we are going to cover what is ethics and what ethics is not about. Hmm? Then what are meva? Meva, what's meva? It's not that which you eat. Means morals, ethics, values, and attitude. We'll understand the three properties of these pillars. These are the pillars on which the entire ethics syllabus is standing. We'll understand their properties and we will understand what is the essence of ethics. Okay, I hope that you are ready with your paper and pen. This is the time for brainstorming shots. All right. So now you just have to focus on the question that I am, highlighting on the screen. I am putting a timer of 2 minutes. Your time starts now. Question number one. Why are ethics important? Write 5 points. Just phrases. Don't write full sentence. You can even write more than 5 points. Be with the question. Half time. All right, I'm up. Next question. Write five consequences of loss of ethics in the society. Your time starts now. Up. Next question. Write five most important ethical values in your life. Okay, time up. This was an easier one. I have allocated lesser time for this. All right. Mention five major ethical challenges for the society today. Okay, time up. Question number 5. Write 5 ethical values that must be followed in any organization, public organization, private organization. Work ethics. This is what this question refers to. Write 5 examples of work ethics. Okay, time up. So in every class, we are going to start with brainstorming shots like that. We may include some shots in between. Overall, we have very strong focus on active learning as compared to passive learning. What is active learning? When your mind is bombarded with questions and when you are not just a passive recipient of the knowledge, you are actively participating in the learning process. So we'll have a lot of work exercises in between the classes, which will focus on making the class more and more engaging, more and more interactive. Even though this class is in a recorded format, yet using some techniques, we will make sure that your learning is active and your retention is deeper. All right, let's proceed. All right, let's begin. So, what is ethics? Ethics, let's look at it etymologically first. Derived from the Greek word ethos, meaning character, habit, or culture. Yeah. So, anything that becomes a part of your character, becomes a part of your culture, ends up defining you, ends up defining who you are. जिसे कहते हैं आपके संस्कार कैसे हैं, आपका जो आपका बिल्टअप है, जो आपका सोचने का तरीका है, आपका पर्सपेक्टिव है किसी भी चीज को लेकर. हाँ, विद इन दैट योर पर्सपेक्टिव रिगार्डिंग what is right and what is wrong, what is good and bad, fair and unfair. It can be defined as a system of principles guiding distinctions. एक ऐसा बिलीफ सिस्टम आपके अंदर, एक ऐसा वैल्यू सिस्टम, एक ऐसा प्रिंसिपल्स का सिस्टम जो आपको हेल्प करे ये डिसाइड करने में कि क्या सही है, क्या गलत है, क्या अच्छा है, क्या बुरा है, क्या जायज है क्या नाजायज, right? Ethical decision, that is why ethics is always about decision making, because it is about principles that help you distinguish, that help you make a decision regarding evaluating and evaluating your environment, evaluating a life proposal, evaluating situations in the society, evaluating what is beneficial and what is not beneficial for you, for yourself, for your organization, for the society, for the country, and for the planet at large. Now, do these principles remain static or they keep on changing? The world is a constantly changing place. Yes, therefore, ethics are constantly evolving and they are influenced by the era. They're influenced by time, they're influenced by space. Within ethics, yes, there are certain components that remain constant or unchanged across time and places. But overall, ethics are definitely influenced by the prevailing thought patterns in the society. What is ethical in France may not be ethical in India. What was ethical in 1850s may not be ethical right now, right? So the predominant ethical thinking of a particular society definitely keeps on evolving, as we will see with many examples in the upcoming slides. Now, for example, a lot of us would have heard this maxim that one should behave with others as one expects others to behave with themselves. This is a very famous maxim that is found in Mahabharata and Christianity, uh, in both Hinduism and Christianity. Do unto others what you would want to do, what you would want to be done to yourself. करेक्ट, आप लोगों के साथ वैसा ही बिहेव करो जैसा आप चाहते हो कि आपके साथ बिहेव किया जाए. All right. Now, let's understand what ethics is not about. A very good way to understand something is to understand what it is not. It's a very ancient philosophical technique in the country that if you want to know who you are, you should first know who you are not. It's called the Neti approach, where you discard things that you are not, and what you are left with, you are that. So applying the same technique here, first let's understand what ethics is not about. Is it about religion? Not really. One can be ethical without being religious. Correct. There are so many, you will find so many atheist friends of yours, so many non-believers, agnostics, skeptics who believe, that there is no higher power. Yet they are very ethical. The way they live their lives is based on certain fundamental principles, right? However, being religious usually implies being ethical, because any sort of higher connection with the divinity cannot be established unless you honor the present world, isn't it? How can you aim for something supernatural if you can't do justice to what is natural? Correct? So every religious system you will see that has a very elaborate system of ethics. Without being ethical, you cannot expect being religious in most cases. Yes, there is a conflict between ethics and religion also at times, but majorly ethics are an integral part of every religion, which basically also means that being ethical is not exactly being religious. They are like two circles, it's a Venn diagram like that, if I can put it. So this would be the scope of ethics, and this would be the scope of religion. So yes, ethics is a very important part of religion, but you can be ethical without being religious, and you can be, and there are a lot of you know concepts in religion which are beyond ethics, right? All right, great. So let's move to, are they laws? Ethics goes beyond legal standards, guiding actions where laws may not explicitly apply. See, life is so complex, governance is so complex, and new adventurous situations, new challenges evolve every day. So there cannot be a legal prescription for everything, right? So laws are of course based on the ethics of the society, but we can't say that there has to be a law for every ethical value. In fact, ethics is beyond laws. There are so many areas of life where there are no laws, but ethics come into picture. For example, during communal riots or mob violence, now a civil servant may need to act on his ethics. There may not be a very uh, you know a prescribed do and don't formula of what to do in a particular situation, but there are values of non-partisanship, of being neutral, of being of prioritizing peace, prioritizing harmony. Correct? All right. Now, is ethics likes and dislikes? Is it like I will be non-violent or I will be kind to people only if it suits me, only if I like it? Not really, right? Your personal preferences can be very different from your ethics. You look at this example. See, a senior student might avoid bullying despite enjoying it, recognize it as unethical. There may be so many seniors who may like the kick of uh, playing around with a new junior on campus and bullying him or playing games with him. But once they recognize that it is unethical and they decide to follow it, so what happens? They put their ethical values over their personal preferences. They may do it otherwise also, but I mean, they may put their personal preferences over their ethical values also, but to demonstrate that both are different. Correct? Now, is it pure science? Is ethics pure science? See, ethics is subjective. You know, it can vary from person to person, as we discussed. It can vary across countries. But does science vary across countries? No. The structure of an atom is same in America as it is in India, right? The latest findings in robotics or AI will be as applicable in Japan as they are in Africa. So, uh, science is objective. That is the beauty of science. But ethics is personal. Ethics is subjective. Most part of it. Correct. It involves decision making that will vary, from person to person in a manner that what you may decide in a particular situation, I may decide something totally different, and yet both of us may be right in that. But science doesn't work like that, right? Ethics deals with human emotions, human psychology, human thinking, and all 8 billion people in the planet are unique. Correct? So, and that is the beauty. If the beauty of science is being objective, the beauty of ethics is being, that subjective, uh, dimension where there is so much of variety. All right. Yes. And we have another slide. Is ethics culturally accepted norms? Suppose, you know, girl child discrimination or female feticide. there have been so many states in the country where this has been a culture, you know, in the past. But just because something is culturally accepted, does that mean that it becomes the ethics? Not at all. Correct? All right. Then beliefs. Is ethics belief? What are beliefs? Beliefs are the basic units of thinking in a human being, you know. The entire thought pattern of a person is his belief system. It's actually the broadest possible representation of the thoughts inside a human being. Within that are ethics, within that are his morals, within that are his values. Right? Beliefs are, you know, everything that a human mind thinks of. Ethics are a subset of that. For example, you may believe that number 7 is lucky for you. But does that mean is this an ethical statement? No. You may believe that you may actually prefer, for example, that you want to wake up early in the morning. Is that ethics? No, that's your personal life. You know, you may believe that you would on Sundays you will take a total off, or you may believe that you want to do a side hustle on Sundays. This is your belief system. This is how you look at your life. This has nothing to do with ethics. Correct. All right. Great. Now let's move on to the next section of this chapter. After understanding the basics of ethics, let's move on to what are MEVA. What are morals, values, ethics, and attitude? Now, see, MEVA are the four foundational pillars of the ethics syllabus. To understand this entire subject, it's very important to understand these four concepts. Now, these are mental constructs that regulate behavior deeply ingrained in individuals, yet they are manifested and carried by the society. What are they? They are mental constructs that regulate how people behave in the society and how in their own lives also. कोई भी इंसान कहीं पर भी कुछ भी कर रहा है, उसके पीछे ये this is acting. If someone is working hard for their life, it is their moral system. If someone is respecting women, it is their ethical system. If someone is, taking responsibility of the environment, it is because of their values. And if someone avoids drinking or does social drinking, is it because it's because of their attitude towards that particular habit? Everything in you know in human life, in human behavior, in the society can be explained via these four things. So discussion of these topics is actually discussion about everything in society, all phenomena in society, human phenomena, right? Now, while they are invisible and intangible, they critically shape societal norms and individual actions, right? This is what we discussed, that you can't see them. Can you see love? Can you see respect? You can see someone respecting elders, but can you see peace? No, these are all abstract, values. They're intangible, right? We'll talk more about this. All right. Now, are MEVA, moral ethics, values, and attitudes, are they absolute or are they relative? Now, there are two approaches in the ethical discussions. One is the absolute approach or the deontological approach. What is this? Basically, this says means over end. That means are as important as ends or more important than ends. The Mahatma Gandhi approach. Now, this approach says no matter what, stick to your principles. That if you have decided to be non-violent, yeah, if you've decided to be non-violent, just stick to it. Never ever deviate from it. Now, what is the this is also called the deontological approach, which basically means the means. Now, what are the characteristics? See, it's inherently rigid and it emphasizes unwavering adherence to principles. Now, there are certain aspects of life where the deontological approach is, very important, and there are certain values also which have to be stuck, which have to be honored, irrespective of anything. For example, non-violence. At a personal level, following non-violence in spirit is absolutely important, right? Or never taking law in your hand. So the absolutist approach, where you are very rigid, कि यार ऐसा है तो ऐसा ही है. You never are willing to see the other possibilities or the consequences of deviating or not deviating from the value. And the other approach is the teleological or the relative approach, which says that you adapt to circumstances, and that ends can justify the means. Now, this offers the necessary leeway to operate within a complex societal framework. This flexibility. Ki sometimes you will have to, life is not black and white, life is gray. Sometimes you will have to bend and adjust as per the needs of the situation. For example, let's have an historical example. So, Krishna advises Yudhishthira to deceitfully imply the death of Ashwathama to disarm Dronacharya. You remember, right? What happened in Mahabharata? So, Dronacharya asks Yudhishthira that has Ashwathama died? Who was Ashwathama? Ashwathama was the son of Dronacharya. Now, Ashwathama asked Dronacharya Dronacharya asked Yudhishthira, he has Ashwathama died? Right? Because a rumor had been spread that Ashwathama is dead. The intention of spreading that rumor was to demoralize Dronacharya. Now, when Yudhishthira, Dharmraj, was asked that has Ashwathama died, then he said yes, because he never ever said a lie in his life. But the horse, the elephant Ashwathama had died. It's the horse or the elephant, I'll check. But an animal had died basically, and because Yudhishthira was Dharmraj and he was never willing to sway from his principles. So Krishna laid this whole trap. Why? Now see, when he says yes, so he is saying the truth that Ashwathama has died. But even he knows that he is not being really truthful in the situation, because what Drona means is his son, Ashwatthama, and whereas Yudhishthira is just trying to cover up in the situation and superficially as in on the face of it is being truthful, but uh, even deep inside he knows that he's saying a lie. Now, it can be called unethical. It can be said that the other person, that you know, that obviously the other person is concerned about his son and not an animal. And you tell him that he has died, you tell him a lie as such on the battlefield. Is this not unethical? No. So Dharma was on the side of Pandavas, right? Righteousness was on the side of Pandavas. What was good for the country? What was good governance? What was justice in that setup? That Pandavas had to win the war. Kauravas had done every possible thing to kill Pandavas, to defame them, to strip them of their ancestral rights, had deeply insulted and assaulted their wives, their wife. So, I mean, they had done every possible unjust thing. And on the top of that, they were not good rulers for the country. So, what should have happened? I mean, the end result of this war should be that good people, I mean, the righteous side should be declared the winner, should win, and good rulers should rule the country for the benefit of public at large. Now, this approach says end justifies the means. As far as you get me good kings and good rulers for my country, all these little, deviations, they are trivial or they are justified. I mean, they're ethically justified. This is the teleological perspective, it's a relative perspective. That there is this line, ahimsa paramo dharma, dharma hinsa tathaiva cha. That yes, ahimsa is the paramo dharma. Non-violence is the ultimate, dharma. But dharma hinsa tathaiva cha. Violence done for the sake of dharma is also justified. How will you establish dharma with pure ahimsa? It's not possible. I mean, if you follow pure ahimsa, dismantle the army, dismantle the police. You cannot run a society without the use of force. It has never happened. So you have to see where, you have to differentiate. This is Viveka, that where the deontological approach is necessary and where the teleological approach is necessary. See, in international relations or in governance, I would say good governance, the teleological approach in national security, the ends, if something has to be done to protect the country, it has to be done at all costs. Then comes the deontological approach, which is more personal ethic, I would say, where the personal ethics are involved. Ahimsa has to be an absolute personal ethic. You cannot hit anyone till the time it's about your survival and your self-defense, or about the honor of yourself, or you cannot take law in your hands. And wherever there is social welfare, these approaches are where the deontological approach is necessary. That means are as important as the end, right? All right. Now let's look at an example. We know about T.N. Seshan, former Chief Election Commissioner, who is famous for revamping the electoral practices and system of the country. Now, uh, he was known for strict enforcement of electoral laws, which led to a cleaner and a more credible election process. Right? Now, what is the Meva insight in this? See, he demonstrated absolute adherence to ethical standards, even when facing political resistance. In the administration, he came out to be someone who followed his ethics no matter what. If elections have to be conducted as per the constitutional values for democracy, this is total non-negotiable. Now, the outcome is that his action led to significant reforms, setting high standards for electoral integrity in India. Right? So, TN Seshan के contribution से क्या हुआ कि उन्होंने इलेक्शंस कंडक्ट करने के एथिकल स्टैंडर्ड्स और प्रोसीजर्स को इतना हाईली एस्टैब्लिश किया कि सारा पॉलिटिकल रेसिस्टेंस, सारे पॉलिटिकल प्रेशर को रेसिस्ट करके उन्होंने जो एथिक्स थे अपने ट्रांसपेरेंसी के, डेमोक्रेसी के, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज के, उनको पकड़ के रखा. सो उन्होंने डियोंटोलॉजिकल अप्रोच फॉलो करके एक ऐसा सिस्टम एस्टैब्लिश करा जो आज तक कंट्री को फायदा दे रहा है. नाउ नेक्स्ट कम्स, आर मेवा स्टैटिक और दे आर डायनामिक? So are meva static or dynamic? See, some values are relatively permanent. They form the core of individual and collective identity. कुछ values हैं जो एक सोसाइटी का एक कोर फॉर्म करते हैं. जैसे इंडियन सोसाइटी में फैमिली वैल्यूज, दे आर अ कोर ऑफ द इंडियन वैल्यू सिस्टम. वो स्टेबल ही रहते हैं. वो एक पूरे कल्चर का एक कलेक्टिव आइडेंटिटी एक तरीके से डिफाइन करता है. इनका कॉस्ट ऑफ फॉर्मेशन क्या? कल्टिवेटेड थ्रू सिग्निफिकेंट इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑफ टाइम, एनर्जी एंड सोसाइटल रिसोर्सेज. सोसाइटी एजुकेशन सिस्टम के थ्रू, पेरेंटल सिस्टम के थ्रू एक सिग्निफिकेंट टाइम, सिग्निफिकेंट एनर्जी और रिसोर्सेज अपने लगाती है इन वैल्यूज को मेंटेन करने के लिए. अच्छा, अब डायनामिक एलिमेंट्स क्या? कि जैसे हमने बोला एथिक्स चेंज होते रहते हैं, तो कुछ एलिमेंट्स हैं जो कोर तो सेम है बट एक्सप्रेशंस और इंटरप्रिटेशंस उसके बदलते रहते हैं ओवर टाइम. और जब इनमें कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होता है तो इंसान को गिल्ट या टेंशन एक्सपीरियंस होता है. जैसे आपका पर्सनल एक एथिक हो सकता है कि लेट्स से कि आई डोंट वांट टू लेट्स से टेक ड्रग्स. But let's say you are put in a hostel where everyone does that and you end up feeling left out or outcasted. So if you look at that environment, then tension comes. You start feeling that I'll be left out, I'll be left behind in my career and I'm not fitting in this entire ecosystem. If I have to fit in, if I have to show up and I have to make good friends, then I have to take drugs. A lot of people face this dilemma. Now, what happened actually here? That there is this static element, there is this core, the core that we were talking, which is stable. So the core of the society still rests in that do not take drugs. But in a particular setup, let's say in a college hostel, what happened that there a predominant idea or a predominant culture evolved that this is cool. And now the static and dynamic elements come in conflict and the individual experiences guilt or tension. Then first he experiences tension. किम कर्तव्य विमूढ़ की स्थिति, क्या करूं क्या ना करूं समझ नहीं आता. After that he does whatever, he experiences guilt. So if he takes drugs, he experiences guilt. If he doesn't, he feels, oh, I'm feeling left behind, and am I doing the right thing for my career or not? I have to play the rules of the game and all of that. So many models, when they join Bollywood or the fashion industry, they adapt to the culture there, whether it's the club parties or you know the clothing and all of this, right? So their core may not sort of agree with that, but to adjust with the environment, to get along with the dynamic environment, they agree to that. Correct. So in short, these, the value structure that we are talking, a person's morals may be that he doesn't want to have drugs or he doesn't want to go partying, but he may have a positive attitude towards drug or partying just because of his societal situation, of his work life situation, where things are dynamic and things are deviated from his ingrained values, right? And his personal actions end up being diverged from their ingrained values. Now, in administrative decisions, let's have a look. So we have the miracle man of Manipur. Yeah, the Armstrong Pame. What is the context? So in the context of shortage of government funds, what did he do? He built a 100-kilometer road in Manipur through community contributions and self-initiative. Now, what does this show? I mean, he could have shown a negative attitude towards building that road very well, right? He could have said that if there are no government funds, I am not liable to to lead the infrastructural development here. But his commitment to public good, you know, it was so strong that he did not, you know, stick to any fixed approach of doing things. And he showed a lot of dynamism in mobilizing resources in a remote area, reflecting his commitment to social development. Now, this is the dynamic nature of ethics, that your ethical value cannot be limited to, okay, what is in the written code of conduct, which is in the written system, that this is correct and this is not correct. And you cannot always go by rules of the book. You have to see what people need, and what people need, is it being fulfilled by the rules of the book? If yes, go ahead. If not, can something outside the rule book be useful for people when done? And this was when he raised community contributions and self-initiative, leading such voluntary, projects, is able to build a 100-kilometer road. It's not a small thing to do. So what is the outcomes? He improved the lives of about 60 villages. And a road is not just a physical road, it's the road to development and economy. Local economies start going up when the road is built. So visionary. All right, now are these subjective or objective? Now, few values hold universal objectivity across different cultures. These are rare. For example, theft or murder. In almost all societies is unethical, correct? But there are mostly subjective values in ethics, and these are the more common ones. For example, in Japan, suicide is not considered unethical. I think it's called harakiri, if I'm not wrong. They differ markedly from Western viewpoints or even Indian viewpoints. I mean, suicide or the whole debate on euthanasia. you know, it's unethical or not. Assisted killing. Now, there are certified doctors in Canada and US who support this, whereas in India, it's not supported. Why? Because our cultural system is different. Same for suicide. I mean, in India, it's considered unethical, unacceptable at any cost. There cannot be any justification for a suicide. In fact, there are spiritual, reasons given that the soul, like, you know, hangs sort of in, between both the worlds. I mean, there is no salvation for people who suicide. Whereas in Japan, the cultural background says that, okay, if you can't take it, I mean, you can rather end your life peacefully. So their suicide is seen as a means of peace, whereas here it is considered miles away from peace and freedom and salvation. So what does this mean? That meva are, some are objective, but most are subjective. They will vary across countries. Now let's look at the context in administration. Now, case study. Now, Ashok Khemka, an IS officer known for his anti-corruption stance. What is the context? He's known for cancelling the mutation of high-profile land deals involving major real estate companies, political heavyweights. So now, not fearing any personal or professional backlash, he took a stand against corruption, right? What is the insight? So, his decision highlight subjective interpretation of ethical standards. Although he faced numerous transfers, his commitment to ethics generated public support and spotlighted issues of governance integrity. Now, see, someone can see, for example, the anti-corruption. Let's say the value of transparency or anti-corruption, all bureaucrats would follow. But why is it that one bureaucrat is transferred again and again? I mean, few of them. So that means their interpretation. So can we say that all others are not, doing their job properly? No. But his standards of transparency and his standards of anti-corruption are league apart. So even though the value is same, but the subjectivity varies. How you interpret a value and how I interpret, they can be different. How intensely a value needs to be prioritized in life, that can differ for you and me. Correct? All right. Now, are they universal or are they culture specific? See, now some bonds are universal. For example, integrity, universal brotherhood. It's like the word says, universal brotherhood, right? Or human values, they are universal. Correct. So they are applicable on all humans, irrespective of their caste, class, race, gender, nationality, etc. But there are some culture specific values. For example, familism. The very idea that the individual identity is smaller than family identity. That the family or the group is more important than the individual. The community is more important than the individual. The will of the larger will of the society should, take over uh, the smaller wish of an individual, and the individual needs to submerge his identity in the greater good. This whole philosophy is an Oriental mindset. In the Eastern world, this is more predominant in the Indian context, Indian culture. Whereas in the Western societies, there is more emphasis on individualism. The whole, you know, uh, stress on independence, not political or but individual's independence, or he or she, my rules, my life sort of a philosophy, that I have to be on my feet, I have to be economically independent, I have to move out at a certain age, I have to design my own life. So the whole life of a person just surrounds his own self. That, everything that a person does is for his own interest. This sort of a very individualistic culture is a trademark of the Western societies, right? Whereas in India, it's always family over the individual. I mean, individuals make so many sacrifices, mothers and fathers and daughters. They make so many sacrifices to keep the family intact. The elders of the community make so many negotiations. They mediate in conflicts just to so that the bonds in a community they remain intact, right? Whereas in the West, it's more about what you want to do, and what are your likes and dislikes, what are your preferences. They are supreme. This is one reason why the divorce rates in the West are extremely high and the loneliness rates in the West are extremely high. Whereas in India, we have different challenges, of course. Um, but there is lesser loneliness, and there are, the family system is more intact here because of the base value, which is, you know, feminism versus collectivism. A feminism or collectivism versus individualism, right? So most meva you would see are culture specific. All right. Now understanding the three properties of morals, ethics, values, and attitude. The first one being that they are always contextual. For example, what is being contextual? That they depend on environment and circumstances. Pornography is legal in France but illegal in India. I mean, you would think that this is this is unreal, but this is real because their whole civilization is different. Their way of looking at things is different. So it shows how societal values and laws will have to adapt to cultural specificities. All right. Then comes abstract. As I said, that things, ethics are mostly you feel they are in air. And when we do the revision module, we'll apply a lot of techniques, where we convert this very abstract subject into something very concrete. So, what do we mean by abstract? That they do not have a physical manifestation. For example, secularism and democracy, foundational ideologies guiding many democratic states, they exist in ideas, in the mind, or in theory, but not physically. Correct? So they don't have a tangible form, yet they end up guiding the parliament and the judiciary and the executive. Right? So understanding this helps in applying and analyzing constitutional provisions in various Supreme Court judgments. Correct? So uh, you can't hold love or you can't hold peace in your hand, but you can use that value to analyze that why a particular Supreme Court judgment was given in a favor or against. So the concept of justice in law, the very idea of justice, where is justice? Right? The very concept of justice in law, in which influences countless legal decisions and policies, and yet it differs in interpretation. Right? So I would say just first thing is that we should accept that this is abstract. We a lot of times students face this issue. They feel that the subject is all in air. The first step is you make peace with it, that it is like that. It is like that. And then we will devise ways on how we can convert the intangible to tangible, right? And it is subjective. Like we just discussed, for example, the views on euthanasia, right? This also means that how important discrimination is. What is discrimination? Discrimination not in terms of an unjust the kind of interpretation the word has in the society. Discrimination, I mean viveka. You know, your ability to distinguish where you have to apply which value. Like we were discussing the absolutist and the relative approach, the deontological, teleological approach. No, both are important. Sometimes you have to follow the right path irrespective of how difficult it is, irrespective of how what the consequences will be. You have to stick to your values. But sometimes you have to see the end goal and do whatever is necessary to achieve the end goal. Both the approaches are right. Life is not about this or that. A lot of times life is about this and that. You need both. So now, how do we make sense of this apparent contradiction or opposite values? How do we integrate them into one ethical framework? This is where Viveka comes into picture. Viveka is your discrimination, your ability to identify where a particular value should be applied. That in which situation, which value should be given priority. Like I said before, if it's your personal ethic, then mostly deontological or the absolutist approach takes, you know, uh, precedence. But when it comes to national security, when it comes to diplomacy, when it comes to bilateral relations, there it's ends over means. I mean, we have to achieve something. When it's about saving lives, you do whatever is necessary to achieve that. So this is where the subjectivity comes in. This is where wisdom comes in. We'll talk more about this in the philosophy chapter. And with this, let's move to the last and very interesting segment of this whole class, which is the essence of ethics. Now, what is the essence of ethics? See, we will explain you this in 9 points, and the following 9 points will help you give a foundational framework in understanding how complex ethical behavior or ethical decision making can be. Now, concepts like the subjective nature of ethics and its contextual application and its relation to justice and responsibility will help you grasp that ethics is not a one-size-fits-all concept. Ethics is not a set of, ethics is not a set of rules. It varies from situation to situation. It's more of a guideline rather than a rule. Dharma can be very different on a battlefield vis-a-vis in a court of law, vis-a-vis when a ruler is interacting with his subjects. This will enable us for deeper discussions going ahead, such as ethical dilemmas, the role of civil servants, the kind of nuanced perspective we need to critically analyze concepts. Let's have a look here. So, ethics beyond legal stipulations. First thing, see, ethical standards a lot of time transcend the narrow confines of law. A lot of times the law is silent or ambiguous. It's not telling you explicitly what's right or what's not right. Or it's vague. It's incomplete. So what do we do then? Yeah, their ethics will take over law. They have to transcend legal boundaries. So the civil servant will have to maintain ethical conduct even though the law is silent or ambiguous. What will this lead to? Moral leadership and trust in governance. So for the janta, for the public, when they see that a ruler respects laws yet goes beyond it and does whatever is necessary to uphold the dignity of everyone in the society and to uphold justice, then that government or that head of state, that authority, they gain massive respect, they gain massive glory out of that. Now, for example, Vishakha guidelines of 1997 led to Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act, where a Supreme Court directive became formal laws, later. So there was no legal mechanism, right, when Vishakha guidelines came. But judiciary gave this 1997 guideline on the basis of what? On the basis of ethics. So in a situation where law is silent, ethics guides judiciary, ethics guides the society, ethics guides executive, right? The three elements of the government: legislature, executive, judiciary. The legislature is silent on an ethical conflict. So the who will guide executive and judiciary and the society at large? Ethics, right? All right. Next, nature versus nurture. Leaders are made or leaders are born? Long debate. Ethics are ingrained or ethics are, or just born ethical? So it's a combination of both. Inherent traits are your nature, which is a person's genotype or biological makeup. You're definitely born a certain way. You're born in a particular combination of qualities. However, you can sort of get nurtured from your environment through the interactions, which is the whole idea of education, which is the idea of Guru Shishya Parampara. Sorry for the writing. Exactly, right? If you cannot nurture people, then what is the whole idea of what's the whole point of education? The whole point of education is to transform a person from a less mature to a more mature individual, to someone who is naive and who doesn't understand human values, to someone who is sensitive and compassionate, someone who doesn't have an insight in decision making, to someone who has the ethical and the moral backing to take the right decisions in life for himself and for the society. So the very concept of nurture actually, is the foundation of any type of training or coaching that exists, including ethical trainings. So where nature is the inborn traits of a person, nurture is the society, cultural, environmental factors shaping one's ethical foundation. So your ethics, some you get from inside, some you get from outside, right? So for example, a lot of saints in the country are born that way, born great. Adi Shankaracharya was doing great things at the age of 4, at the age of 8, right? Let's look at some examples of how leaders can use their ethical ways in positive and negative ways. So great leaders end up nurturing the whole society, not just in the present times, but for generations to come. So Mahatma Gandhi's life, his message was not just relevant 100 years back or like 80, 70 years back, but even today, it's as relevant, as meaningful. So a leader who was himself, was a combination of his natural ethics and his environmental conditions, ends up nurturing the whole society. Correct? Where Mahatma Gandhi used it for reshaping the ethical fabric of the society, leaders like Hitler used it to manipulate ethical standards and to justify harmful ideologies. The very property that you can nurture ethical values in a society, Gandhiji used in this is a power. See, nurturing is a power. You can use it this way, you can use it right. But the whole idea of leadership also rests on the fact that you can nurture people and you can nurture more leaders, and that leadership can be made. Acha, leadership and ethics is very closely related. You know how? See, what is, le- you know, ne- a leader called in Hindi? Neta. And what is a minister called in Hindi? Neta. Correct. So, what do you call leadership in Hindi? Netritva. If you say in Sanskrit or in Hindi, uh, the two concepts are used interchangeably. That you are a political minister or you're a leader, it's the same thing. So, if you are expected to be, how you can make ethical ministers is the same as making ethical leaders in the society. And if nurturing wasn't possible, right? How can you ever have good governance? How can you have ethics in governance? That is what we are studying, right? In paper 4, 250 marks, we want to study ethics in governance. Now, how can you have ethics in governance if nurturing isn't possible? So, because nurturing is possible, we can have ethics in governance, and because nurturing is possible, leaders are not just born but they are made, and ultimately they are the same. Next, context, right, may vary in intensity. So for example, caste based reservations in India, see, the policy of providing reservations for scheduled castes, ST and OBC, in jobs, education and politics is an ethical situation to undo historical injustices. However, in some other country, that it is such affirmative action, may be just seen as unethical or unnecessary. In a country where there is no such context of giving reservation, the whole idea of reservation can come across as purely unjust or populist, right? So there it may be unethical, but in India it is largely seen as an ethical concept. Of course, now it's said that time has changed, so you need to relook at it and you need to modify it. But uh, largely it's still seen as ethical. I mean, no one questions why were these categories given reservation in the first place? Because of the historical context. Now, ethics operate at different levels. The individual levels, personal ethics, honesty. You will not lie no matter what. But if you are a spy of raw, you may have to lie at a lot of places. Organizational, um, you have to behave with your seniors in a particular manner when you are in an organization. However, personally, you may not agree to some behavioral standards at workplace, but to fit into an organization, you will abide by them. Then socio-cultural, you know, like for example, respect for elders in Indian culture, and then national and international, for example, human rights. Okay, for example, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, is what it started as a national campaign. But what is it actually grounded in? It's grounded in individual ethics of cleanliness, showcasing how individual ethics drive national initiatives. Correct? So even though the initiative is at this level, but the ethics are at this level. Then this we have done that they are abstract and subjective. For example, freedom of speech in India is a constitutional right, but it is subject to various ethical boundaries like respecting religious sentiments. It's not absolute. It has subjective limitations. And the interpretations of what hurts religious sentiment or not varies from case to case. Then interrelation of ethics. See, ethics are interconnected. One cannot be ethical in one domain without being ethical in another. For example, you cannot be honest without being truthful. You cannot be objective without being tolerant. So you can't say that you are a truthful person without being honest, right? You can't say that I am truthful but I am not honest, right? And you cannot be objective without being tolerant. If you're not a tolerant person, if you do not tolerate opposite viewpoints in any setup, how can you think objectively? Suppose if you are not tolerant to one viewpoint and you're always against it, even if there is something right in it, how will you rationally think about anything, right? Now, during economic depression, countries may compromise on climate change obligations, highlighting the interlink between economic ethics and environmental ethics. Economic ethics and environmental ethics. All your GS, the four GS subjects, they are all interrelated. The more you are able to connect ethics to economy, ethics to environment, and we'll dive deep into that, the more it is, marks fetching for you. So, a country that is going through depression will not be very sensitive to their climate change obligations naturally. Money comes first to run a country. I'm not saying at the cost of environment, but very practically, when you have food grains shortage, will you think about global CO2 emissions? Now, interaction with non-human entities. Ethical behavior also extends to interactions with machines, animals, and the environment. Example, environmental conservation laws like the Forest Rights Act 2006 are rooted in ethical responsibility towards the environment, promoting sustainable interaction between humans and nature. Hmm. Actually, you look at most all environment or laws related to preservation of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. What is the value behind it is respect towards environment. So ethics is not just human interactions, but how you interact with your environment, and then animal rights, machines, AI, ethics and technology, all will take up all this. But just in the moment, getting the context that not just human relations, but your relations with your entire environment, even non-biological. Now, justice as the basis of ethics. Ethics arise from the sense of justice prevailing in the society. Correct. Now, see, for example, let's have the examples first. See, Aadhaar Judgment 2018 balanced what? Privacy and ethical concern with the need for social welfare programs, emphasizing justice as the guiding principle. So, data is important, but in India, social welfare, or public welfare is, as we discussed, the welfare of all is given more importance than the preference of someone. So yes, privacy of data is important, but it has to be balanced with judicious use of that data for the public good, right? Why? Because that is what is just. That is what is justified in that case. Correct? And responsibility beyond accountability. See, ethics are maintained not just through accountability to laws, but also to an internal sense of responsibility, right? It's said that ethics are what you do when no one's watching you, right? So there has to be this inner conscience, this inner pinch that I am doing something. Will I be proud of it later? So you are more not just accountable to the external agencies, whether it's your organization, whether it's your parents, whether it's your teachers, or your clients, or your customers, or public at large, but to yourself. you know do you feel that pinch inside that something is not justified, and even if no one knows about it, and even if it's not urgent right now, um, even if I may not get anything out of this, yet it must be done. That sense of taking responsibility for your values and for the good of the world, you know, that is what is um, justice is. That is what is ethics is, right? So, for example, all whistleblowers, let's say Satyendra Dubey's case, the whistleblower in National Highways Authority of India, took personal responsibility for exposing corruption despite the risks. Right, so all whistleblowers, you can quote this example for more marks, but what do they do? They're not really accountable for where the organization is going, but they take responsibility of any ethical deviation that they notice, which may have catastrophic consequences for, which may have dangerous consequences for the public. So they expose it at their personal risk. They risk their life, they risk their career. Why? They are not accountable for it, but they take responsibility. Responsibility is not given, it's taken. It's that which you do even when no one tells you to do it. When you organize a cleanliness drive in your locality, no one's telling you to do it. You feel responsible for your road, for your locality. Any volunteer activity, all service initiatives, in fact, are based on this principle that I am responsible. I am responsible for my nation and the growth of it, maintenance of it. We need more individuals to think like that. All the NGOs, the entire NGO movement runs on this principle. Who tells an NGO to do what they are doing? No one. Even if they don't do it, is anyone going to come at their head and sit and say that it's your responsibility? No, they're not accountable to anyone. I mean, unless they take funds and all that comes later. But there are millions of NGOs, voluntarily dedicating themselves to various causes. Why do they do it? They feel a sense of belongingness, and with that sense of belongingness, they take that responsibility. I would also say that, every IAS aspirant should be associated with one NGO and give like 1 hour in social service in 1 week, just like Sunday maybe. I tell you, so many of these concepts that appear theoretical to us, they start entering our life. They start entering our personality when we are associated with seva. When you are in seva, you get meva. You get both the mevas. You get the you get merit, and you also get to deeply understand morals, ethics, values, and attitude. Meva, right? So with this, we wrap this lecture, and in the next lecture, we will continue discussions of the first chapter of ethics.